Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I am going to be discussing last night's kickoff to the NBA season where we saw the first two games of the year. However, before I get too far into it, I want to remind you all to leave a like and subscribe. I've been appreciating all the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Now, without further ado, let's talk about the games from last night. The first game of last night's doubleheader was the Warriors-Nets game, in which we saw the Nets blow out the Warriors. This game was never close. The Nets took a pretty convincing lead in the first quarter and they never looked back. They ended up winning by a final score of 125-99 behind two great performances from Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Durant finished with 22 points and 5 rebounds on 7 for 16 shooting from the field. 1 for 2 from 3 and 7 for 7 from the line in just 25 minutes. Terrific night for KD. He did a great job of getting to his spots in the mid-range where he's just able to rise up and shoot it over the smaller perimeter defenders that are tasked with guarding him. We also saw him do a nice job of getting to the rim. It didn't look like his Achilles was iffy at all, as we saw him put down 2 pretty impressive dunks. He also got to the line 7 times, as I mentioned before. So overall, great night for KD. Kyrie was also terrific. 26 points on 10 for 16 shooting, 4 for 7 from 3, and 2 for 2 from the line. Once again, in just 25 minutes. Kyrie really looked to have a scorer's mentality tonight. We saw him pull up and take a couple deep threes. You would have thought that perhaps he was the Steph Curry on the court, not Curry himself. And overall, just a great game from the two Brooklyn All-Stars, and you can certainly see why a lot of people are predicting this team to be perhaps the best in the Eastern Conference for this season. On the other side of the coin, Steph Curry had a bit of a struggle on the court tonight. He finished with 20 points and 10 assists, but he was very inefficient from the field, shooting just 7 for 21 and 2 for 10 from 3, although he did go 4 for 4 from the line. Continuing what I thought was a very interesting stat, that he has not missed a free throw in an NBA game since March 2019, which is just mind-blowing to think about. That's like 20 months ago. But anyways, Steph, in my opinion, wasn't hitting shots. A lot of people are saying that he's not going to be as effective on a team that doesn't have as many on-ball shot creators like he had prior to last season, when he had Andre Iguodala and Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson as options to create offense for him. But really, I just think he was missing open shots. It felt like there were quite a few open looks that Curry just couldn't get to go down. So if he hits shots like that, I think we'll see him perform better. The question is whether or not that's even going to be enough to carry this Warriors team to wins. We saw Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins really struggled tonight. Wiggins had 13 points on 4 for 16 shooting and 4 turnovers. Oubre had 6 points on 3 for 14 shooting and 3 turnovers. That is really poor efficiency and a whole lot of turnovers for two guys who this Warriors team is really counting on to carry a strong offensive load. Tonight, they simply didn't do it very well. Oubre, I thought, actually had a solid game, especially on defense, where he showed a lot of great energy, and he also had that prolific putback dunk over Kevin Durant. But outside of that, these two guys both struggled, and they're going to have to play a lot better in order for this Warriors team to win games. If they are shooting more efficiently and taking care of the ball better, and we see Curry's shots start to fall a bit more, then I still think that this is a playoff team. We don't need to overreact. It's just one game, and they were playing against a really solid team in Brooklyn. But the fact that those two struggled as much as they did certainly is a bit concerning for the Warriors. One positive thing for the squad, however, was the performance of James Wiseman. Finished with 19 points and 6 rebounds on 7 for 13 shooting, knocked down his only three-pointer, and only went 4 for 8 from the free throw line, which was a bit troublesome, but overall his jumper looked pretty good. He knocked down 2 or 3 mid-rangers as well as 1 3. which was a bit more than I was expecting from him. I thought that the jumper was going to take a bit longer to develop, and it looks like it's already in a pretty good spot. He also threw down a really nice dunk on a pick and roll rim run off of a lob pass. I can't remember who it was from. I get it, a lot of those points that he put up came in garbage time, but it was impressive nonetheless to see him score at such a high level against NBA competition. On the defensive end, I didn't think he was as good. Didn't have any blocked shots. Did come away with 2 steals, but they weren't really standout defensive plays in my opinion. And he also generally looked pretty bad in pick and roll defense, where I think he had a couple blown coverages and just wasn't really making the right decisions. But because of his offensive contributions, I think that this is certainly a positive game for James Wiseman, and the Warriors have to be happy with the way that he performed. A bit of a last note here on this game before I wrap it up. I picked Caris LeVert to win 6th Man of the Year, and through one game, I'm pretty satisfied with my pick. He put up 20 points and 9 rebounds on 6 for 17 shooting, 3 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 6 from the line. Just a terrific night for Caris. The 3-point shooting was certainly a great sign, as that's a critique a lot of people have had with his game during the last couple of years, but his 3-point stroke looked really good, and I'm really excited to see what he can do as the primary shot creator when this bench unit is out there. Now we will move on to the Clippers-Lakers game, which ended up ending with the Clippers being victorious in a 116-109 battle. We saw the Clippers get off to a great start. They were up 20 after the first quarter, but the Lakers were able to trim that lead down to 2 points by halftime. In the second half, it was a bit of a game of runs, as we would see the Clippers pad their lead a little bit and the Lakers chop it back down and either tie it up or get it down to a point or two. But every time the Clippers had an answer, and that was largely because of Paul George. George had a terrific second half that led to him finishing with 33 points, 6 rebounds on 13 for 18 shooting, 5 for 8 from 3, and 2 for 2 from the line. Paul George is one of the best shooters in the NBA, and I think that people have forgotten that based off of his poor shooting performance in the bubble. But most of the time, this guy is an absolute knockdown shooter, and today was certainly impressive. Once he got on a roll, he was taking all kinds of difficult shots, through spot up or face up threes off of like jab step stuff with a hand in his face, off balance mid-range shots where he's fading away from the basket. He could make whatever he wanted, and it was just really, really fun to watch. It felt like he was taking the shot every time the Clippers had the ball, and I think he put up a 24-point second half. So overall, a great game for Paul George, kind of silencing the haters a little bit. I was also very happy to hear in his post-game interview that he is in a good space mentally and physically after he struggled with some mental health stuff in the bubble. That is certainly a good sign. And I'm excited to see Paul George. Maybe he can get back to being an all-NBA caliber player this season after he didn't make that team last year. Kawhi Leonard also had a solid scoring night, putting up 26 points on 26 shots, although his 2-point efficiency was solid, shot at 50% on twos. It was really just a 1 for 8 performance from 3 that brought down his overall shooting efficiency, but he got to the line effectively. When he was getting to his spots in the mid-range, he was able to knock down those shots at a pretty high level. The 3-point shot was a bit nerve-wracking, as you'd like to see him make at least more than 1 out of 8 shots from long range. However, the fact that he's confident enough to be rising up and taking those shots is a good sign, and I'm sure they'll fall eventually. And if Paul George is playing at this high level and Kawhi Leonard is being Kawhi Leonard as we know him, but perhaps with a better 3-point shooting stroke, that makes the Clippers very, very scary and definitely backs up my belief that they're the best team in the Western Conference. However, I was making that prediction based off of my priors. I had them from top to bottom. I viewed them as the best team in the West, and I think that they are going to be quite good this season. But based off tonight, I don't think you can take too much away. Paul George played 36 minutes. Kawhi Leonard played 31 minutes. Anthony Davis played 31 minutes. And LeBron James played 28 minutes. So the Clippers stars played significantly more minutes than the Lakers stars. It was a little weird because it felt like when AD and LeBron were on the court, there would be stretches where they didn't really do anything and weren't looking to take their own shots. They both ended up posting solid stat lines, with LeBron scoring 22 points on 7 for 17 shooting, 3 for 8 from 3, and 5 for 7 from the line. AD had 18 and 7 on 8 for 15 shooting, but it just felt like those two kind of disappeared for stretches. And if you're the Lakers and you're relying on them to score the high point totals that they need to, you'd like to see them be a bit more involved in the offense than they were. Of course, this was the first game back, and they're just getting back into a rhythm. It was an emotional night as they received their rings. But I do think that a more LeBron and AD focused offense would certainly benefit the Lakers moving forward. Dennis Schroeder, however, did provide a really solid third option for this team. I liked this deal quite a bit. It was easily my favorite of the moves that this team made in the offseason, although I do think that trading Danny Green was kind of a big deal. But Schroeder had 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists tonight. Did not necessarily shoot the ball at an efficient level, was only 5 for 15 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. But just the fact that the Lakers are going to have another really good option as a scorer once those two go to the bench, and as a shot creator when LeBron is out of the game, just is super valuable to this team. And if he continues to fight and has a good motor on the defensive end of the floor, he's really going to help this team out. And I think that he's clearly the third best player. That's just in my opinion, though. Overall, my biggest question with the Lakers, and the reason why I think the Clippers are probably the better team, is just all the questions about their shooting. I get it, there were questions last year, but at that point, they had Danny Green, who, say what you want about his streakiness, was a 37% shooter in the regular season, and I think he was a 34% shooter in the playoffs as well. So that's an above average three-point shooter, and you took that guy away. And while I do think that Schroeder is also a good three-point shooter, I don't necessarily think that he's as good as his numbers from last year would indicate, considering it was career highs across the board in terms of his shooting efficiency. Outside of Schroeder, the only other above average three-point shooter on this roster is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So if this team is really struggling to knock down shots, I think that could be a bit troublesome for them. And if they run into a team that matches up similar to them in the playoffs, the lack of shooting really could be a problem, and that makes me nervous. Tonight, they were 9 for 29 from 3, which is 31%. That's not awful, but I also just don't really see this team shooting that much better than that. That's my biggest concern with the Lakers. My last thing about tonight's game is, I get it, they were both very productive in their time on the floor, but I just think that Ivica Zubac is a better player than Serge Ibaka is. They both put up pretty solid stat lines tonight. Ibaka had 15 points on 6 rebounds on 5 for 7 shooting, 2 for 3 from 3, 3 for 5 from the line. Zubac had 11 and 6 on 4 for 5 from the field, 3 for 4 from the line. But based off the eye test, Zubac is clearly a better defensive player. That drop coverage based pick and roll scheme that the Clippers play is perfect for him. He does a great job of protecting the rim in that scheme, and was really playing at a high level on offense as well, where I think that he is going to pick up nicely where Montrezl Harrell left off as the primary pick and roll big man in this Clippers offense. So with the combination of those two things, I think that at some point Zubac is going to take over as the starter, because I just think that he's clearly the better player of the two. But Zubac did play more minutes than Ibaka tonight, and so even if he is coming off the bench, it wouldn't surprise me if he's just the higher minutes player of the two, because quite frankly, I just think he's the better of the two. Those are my thoughts on the games from tonight. Once again, it's just one game. You can't take away too much, but it was fun to see NBA basketball being played at a competitive level once again, and I genuinely thought that there was a lot of fun stuff to take away from tonight's games. Let me know what you thought of the games in the comment section down below. Also, let me know what kind of videos you want to see during this regular season. I don't have an absolute plan. I think I'm going to come out with pretty much daily videos where I am discussing the games of the night before, as well as reactionary videos when there's news such as injuries and trades coming out. But outside of that, I don't really know what I want to do. If you liked the power rankings video I came out with yesterday, let me know and I will make that a weekly thing. If you have any other ideas, let me know as well. I'm really open to a lot of different stuff because I don't have much of a plan for this regular season. Anyways, I think that I've covered everything that I want to cover, so that's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.